They say you can take a wife out of Odesa, but it's almost impossible to take Odesa out of your wife. Something similar is happening to me right now. I went on vacation to Japan for 2 weeks, but back home in the United States, so many interesting things are happening that after seeing another temple or pagoda, or eating ramen or sukiyaki, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I grab my phone and check the news, and the sukiyaki gets cold and turns into cold yaki. And for those who don't know, in American kids' slang, yaki means something like yucky. Alright, so anyway, I move on from the sukiyaki and switch to the news. First of all, there's Trump's message that analysts can't quite figure out. I no longer need 50 days of delay. I'll say what I'm going to do with Russia in about 10 to 12 days. And this was said after a thorough conversation with Kidney. By this, my Lord God, those British elders, I'm getting confused. Well, that's naturally the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Here are unexpected reports and new information related to Epstein the former Trump staffer who was hit by a bus in Australia who was connected to Epstein, then her unexpected suicide either in the hospital after she was hit, she was unconscious, and then she took her own life. After she said that there were people who wanted her to be silenced, Trump actually couldn't take it anymore and spoke up for her. But let's start with trade agreements. Europe was up in arms when they found out the terms on which Ursula signed the agreement with Trump. Especially Germany. They're up in arms, on edge. I don't know, they're beside themselves. And Germany believes that not imposing tariffs on American goods could seriously hinder the sale of German goods throughout Europe. So Germany and France, and maybe a bit less, but Italy as well, came up with an interesting trick. So for all the new members of the European Union, Poland was once new, then Lithuania, Estonia, and so on. And so on. They were offered loans on very favorable terms. Like, here, take it, we'll gladly give you a big loan on good terms. Billions. But with one restriction, just a small restriction, not to compete with those who have been in the European Union for a long time. That's why Lithuania and Latvia shut down their electronics manufacturing. Remember, they used to produce them there. Across the Baltic region, the fishing fleet was destroyed. And all of this was done so that the newcomers wouldn't compete with the leading European countries, so to speak. They were given a large, good loan, but every single newcomer received loans. Maybe the country's leadership even received gifts personally. We suspect that's the case. But if someone in the European Union gets the idea to buy high-precision engineering, let's say, machines, if not in Germany, then nowhere else, and it's not allowed to buy foreign ones. But many goods, well, they kind of invented all sorts of quality standards for them. So only French manufacturers, for example, can fit into them. The leaders of the European Union also came up with an environmental restriction. And many industries simply can't be created from the start. That's why allowing the import of American equipment, chemicals, agricultural products, and machinery is a real stab in the back. Well, let's say the leaders of the Union. All their tactics with loans and slamming the mousetrap shut on whoever takes it have gone to hell. As they say, they wasted their money. That's why the Germans and the French are in a state of mild frenzy, I would say. So, a journalist was interviewing the Chancellor of Germany and basically started his speech by saying, "We lost, we lost."
As a result, he's not satisfied. I mean, Oxy, it's good that I'm saying this now. It was more obvious, considering the initial situation we had with the United States of America, that it couldn't be achieved. Now, in clear words, the German economy will suffer significant damage.
The United States press tirelessly repeated that we, the citizens of the country, would lose or gain nothing and only irritate our friends. Somehow they suddenly fell silent after the signing of this agreement, the agreement with Britain, today's agreement, yesterday's agreement with South Korea. And I believe that Ursula therefore represented not only Germany and France, and about 24 countries that ended up on the hook of these big countries and were very nervous about it. And now they are very pleased that flights, competition, and prices will improve, and theoretically the quality should also soar. If not, if you have worse prices and worse quality, or if one of them is worse than your competitor, then you're out. By the way, we put a 15% duty on all goods from Europe here at home, while they have 0 duty on our goods there. But at least we stopped talking about how we protect Europe from Russia and China for free. It's not free anymore. By the way, as Trump came up with, Russia is trying to convince, well, so to speak, and China is also trying, but I'm not sure it will work with China, not to buy Russian oil. I'll discuss that later. After all, he did come up with it, yes. I remember that Pushkin, pleased with himself, used to repeat, "Well done, Pushkin, what a son of a gun." Well, it seems to me that we can already start saying after him, "Well done, Trump, what a son of a gun." Yes, for now. So, new information about the Epstein case keeps coming in about how the Democrats and their media regarding what is being told and what they are doing to prepare their audience for her revelations.
Spending more than 50% of their airtime in the last few weeks on the Epstein case, which is funny considering they didn't cover Epstein at all for 5 years. And now suddenly they can't stop talking about it. I wonder why, but they're very careful about how they cover it. Each of these segments tries to portray President Trump as a child predator. Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. The news coverage is disturbing and difficult to watch.
Trump breaks his silence about what he says caused the end of his close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein.
How do you like that Epstein suddenly became a close friend of Trump?
For many years, I didn't speak with Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't speak with him because he did something inappropriate. He hired assistants, and I said, never do that again. He poached people who worked for me, and I said, oh, never do that again. He did it again, and I kicked him out, declared him persona non grata. I kicked him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did that. If you want to know the truth.
You could say, or maybe it's Trump who's lying. Yes. But there is his order not to let Epstein onto the territory of Trump's golf clubs. This was long before any trials, before the first ones, because at first Epstein had trials, then he got off, then they started again, so to speak. That's how it was. And the order was specifically because Epstein was persuading pretty 15 and 16-year-old girls who worked at the spa in Mar-a-Lago, that is, to come and work part-time for him.
Well, of course, we heard from several guests, all of whom knew Trump at different times. And the ways they all agreed on one thing, that Epstein and Trump were once, quote, best friends.
Did you notice how the announcer slipped up? She doesn't know how to explain that her words are just made up by the management. And she says, we were just telling the story. Many people who knew, who knew for sure that Trump and Epstein, well, I mean, not just close, but best friends. There was no one closer to Trump than him. And who said that? It was someone who knew, someone who told me. You absolutely need to know their names, right? It doesn't matter. You're still closer to me. Will you believe me when I say that someone said they were? He says the island was rife with filth, corruption, and lawlessness. If Trump is Epstein's friend, if he's part of this, it's a little strange that he talks like that, right? It's kind of like he's lying. But we never really expected anything different from them. Or maybe we did expect it. That's exactly what we expected from them.
All right, President Trump says that Epstein stole Virginia Roberts. She used both the names Giuffre and Roberts and several young employees of the Mar-a-Lago spa. That's what President Trump just said. We'll listen in a moment. Virginia Roberts was 16 years old when she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell from the spa at Mar-a-Lago to work for Epstein. That's crazy, huh? Wow. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that Jeffrey Epstein took Virginia Roberts and several other young employees from the Mar-a-Lago spa, which led to their falling out. She worked at the spa, Trump noted.
By the way, when Epstein was tried for the first time and almost everything was covered up, one person offered the prosecutor evidence that Epstein and Maxwell were looking for. And so to speak, they were trying, as they say, to recruit, yes, to look for recruits. They were looking for young and very young bodies for meat for wealthy clients. And who suggested to the prosecutor to do this? One person on the whole planet. It was Donald Trump, Epstein's best friend. And here's another interesting testimony from a famous author, the author of many bestsellers, James Patterson.
I wouldn't include anything in the book that I don't, believe in 100%. I was on a plane at one point, and the woman sitting next to me turned out to be running the spa at Mar-a-Lago. I inquired if she had ever encountered Jeffrey Epstein there, and she replied affirmatively. She said he wasn't a member, but he would come, and she said he behaved inappropriately with young girls. And she said, I went to Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump banned him from coming that same day.
Isn't that similar to James Patterson, one of the most respected authors in America? Is he also a Mar-a-Lago member? So it matches what President Trump is saying now. An incredible revelation. Kevin Spacey was clearly referring to issues involving Bill Clinton and Epstein. Donald Trump is on fire. He keeps talking about Bill Clinton and Epstein. It seems like they have a lot more to hide than anyone else. Donald Trump is very outspoken. And J.D. Vance dropped a truth bomb yesterday to kind of seal the deal and talk about a new approach that I saw from the administration on this issue. And that's welcome. For 4 years under Joe Biden's Department of Justice, he didn't care about the Epstein files for 20 years. Obama and Bush, those are the Departments of Justice that were really soft on Jeffrey Epstein. Perfect. A perfect delivery here from J.D. Vance.
The press, I think I'll be that person. There are protesters outside accusing the Republican Party of protecting pedophiles. And we would like to know what you think are the reasons why the United States government should keep Epstein's client list hidden from the public. And what can you say about any connection to this today?
Well, let me say a couple of things. First, the president was very... The president instructed the Attorney General to make all reliable information public and, frankly, to find additional reliable information related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. He has been very transparent on these issues, but it requires time. The info must be collected, compiled, and certain victims' names redacted for their protection. But the president has been very clear. He wants full transparency. He asked the Attorney General for this, and I know because I talk to her all the time that the Attorney General is working hard on this issue right now. I should note that there is something interesting about this case that the American media seem to be completely ignoring. For 4 years under Joe Biden's Department of Justice, did the media not care about the Epstein files or the Epstein case? For 20 years, the story of Jeffrey Epstein, a scoundrel and pedophile who is now dead, has persisted. But for 20 years, the Department of Justice under Obama and George W. Bush was lenient with this man. They failed to fully investigate the case and showed no curiosity about it. Donald Trump is now asking his Department of Justice to demonstrate full transparency. And somehow this is criticism of Donald J. Trump, not Barack Obama or George W. Bush. If you want to criticize people who are not fully transparent, you should pay attention to the administrations that were lenient with Jeffrey Epstein. The administrations that covered up this case for 20 years and the administrations that did not show full transparency. Donald J. Trump, I'm telling you, he has nothing to hide. His administration has nothing to hide. And that's why he advocates for full transparency in this case. He will continue to advocate for full transparency. But for now, we are focused on this case. Donald J. Trump is also concerned that these wonderful workers should take home higher pay and have better jobs. That's the administration's focus. Thank you.
Well done, J.D. Vance. Very precise, very concise, and correct. Basically, you don't accuse those who are hiding and enabling, right? Instead, you accuse of covering up the one who is trying to expose these scumbags, including Epstein and the pedophiles.
Now, of course, the big question is, what does that really mean regarding Trump? And if Epstein and Trump ended their long friendship, how does Trump describe it? Yes, that's what happened. If Epstein was hiring people who worked for him, who was that staff member he was poaching? Why was it so important? These questions are important and their answers matter. And in a moment, I'll talk to people who have inside information about the Epstein investigation and the relationship between Trump and Epstein. Clearly, Trump's decision to reveal these details tonight is significant.
It's very important, she says, to find out who it was. But is it important to you whether it was Linda, Lucy, or Marusha? It's extremely important.
And when it comes to Maxwell, look at how they're already preparing their audience, preparing the Democrats not to believe what Ghislaine Maxwell says. Remember, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, met with Ghislaine for 2 full days last week to finally get the whole story, to find out what really happened with that trafficking network, and to see if she has any incriminating evidence on anyone else the Department of Justice doesn't know about yet. Look at how nervous these people are because of what she's saying. Look.
We just learned that Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was granted limited immunity to speak with Trump's personal lawyer turned Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. So what did this limited immunity mean? But it allowed Maxwell to provide information without fear that anything she said, but Trump still tried to blame Biden for it, hoping everything would just go away. And now he's even hinting at pardoning the only person serving time for helping Epstein run his child trafficking network. That's Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted liar who could end up in that position. She could end up in a position where she could ruin or save the people whose names are in Epstein's files.
Well, I have the right to grant her a pardon, but no one has approached me about it. No one. It's in the news about this aspect, but right now it would be inappropriate to talk about it.
Right now it would be inappropriate. He says never.
Not never. It's interesting how journalists and propagandists know how to twist any words. The person said, I think now is not the time to talk about this. What are they saying? For them, it turns into, yeah, he never said that. He still hasn't said that the sun sets in the west. Never. And 90 degrees is a right angle. And what do you think about the statement that Trump's personal lawyer is now the deputy chief? It feels like he's Trump's personal lawyer and that, Trump's personal lawyer. Yeah, it's obvious to everyone, but what's obvious, it's not obvious at all, right? And by the way, Kennedy, the president, had his own brother as the main prosecutor, the Attorney General of America.
When Trump mentioned never going to the island, he was offered to go, but he's damn glad he refused. But in the same sentence, he was also smart enough to mention Bill Clinton, saying, I didn't go, but Bill Clinton went about 28 times. He shows this, but cuts out or trims the part of the sentence with Bill Clinton. You can't make this up.
By the way, I have never been to the island, but Bill Clinton supposedly was there 28 times.
That's what Trump said, and here's what they came up with.
Never visited Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Listen.
I never had the privilege of visiting his island. I refused, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. At one of my best moments, I refused his invitation to visit his island.
So Bill Clinton doesn't exist, even though he went to the island. I read it happen 26 times, but Trump, who is Epstein's best friend, keeps insisting it was 28 times. He would know better. CNN just has a wonderful, very honest position, yeah. Everything you can lie about Trump and everything you can avoid saying about the Democrats, no matter what they do. But the statistics, well, let's accept that it's 20 times, 20 times for Clinton and never for Trump kind of speaks for itself.
In the ongoing Epstein saga. Virginia Roberts is involved, who worked for Epstein for almost 20 years. She was involved in sex trafficking with Prince Andrew. The royal family settled the case out of court for tens of millions of pounds. Here she is with Ghislaine Maxwell, who was involved in human trafficking. Virginia Roberts broke her silence and told her story to the media, exposing Jeffrey Epstein and his sick operation, saying that she is not suicidal. If something happens to me, for the sake of my family, don't let this disappear. Help me protect them. Too many evil people want to silence me, says Virginia Roberts several years before she is hit by a bus in the Australian outback, one of the most remote places on Earth. Then she writes from the hospital that she only has a few days left to live, and a few days later she is killed. Her own family says they don't believe she committed suicide, mainly because she writes in such posts, "I am not suicidal." In the ongoing scandal and crisis surrounding Epstein, it would be very helpful to have such an outspoken witness to all the crimes for questioning. But Virginia Roberts, in her own words, was reassured.
The girl cost the British Crown, well, tens of millions of pounds sterling. I don't think I read exactly how much, but it's known that the story involved, so to speak, tens of millions. And by the way, she didn't calm down. She offered to be a witness in court for anyone, and she was hit by a bus. She was taken, as we were told, unconscious to the hospital, where she remained unconscious for some time, and we were told that she was fighting for her life. And then, apparently without regaining consciousness, she committed suicide. According to another version from other sources, she was released home, again, apparently in an unconscious state, fighting for her life, and committed suicide there at her parents' farm. The case is actually so strange that even today, although she died several weeks ago, and nowhere is there any mention of the police's opinion, the family's reaction, or the coroner's report, which is almost unbelievable, that there is still no report, still no coroner's report. It's true Virginia, that was her name, used to drink and beat her own children, so the court forbade her from
seeing them.
But prostitutes in general are not very restrained people. And she also got a few dozen million pounds sterling for a love affair with the prince. That's better than dollars. And she had enough to drink and have a snack. Perhaps she drank on an empty stomach. It's uncertain. But we're not interested in her personally, but in what happened to her as a witness to future accusations. At the age of 16, Virginia worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago spa club.
Also goes by Virginia Giuffre, also known as Virginia. Giuffre worked at Mar-a-Lago, and that Jeffrey Epstein recruited her from the Mar-a-Lago spa. What's going on here? Is this all new information, something we didn't know in the story of Virginia Roberts? What we knew about the story of Virginia Roberts is that this isn't the first time Virginia Roberts was silenced. And we'll show you a clip with Trump. It's astonishing. President Trump broke off relations with Jeffrey Epstein and ended their friendship. Virginia Roberts tried to speak out, I suppose, from beyond the grave. This is the famous video from one of the most well-known hosts in history saying that she had the Virginia Roberts story.
The story was ready to air. Everyone, all the evidence, documents, and facts were reviewed, and then suddenly they were forbidden to release it. Why?
She was in hiding for 12 years until we persuaded her to emerge and speak with us.
Maybe she died because she seemed persuadable to tell the facts.
It was incredible that we had Clinton, we had everything.
And they didn't let her air it. You saw that clip. They didn't let her go on air with Virginia Roberts' story. They shut it down.
That was the first time we heard that Bill Clinton was somehow connected to this. Pizzagate. Well, I mean, a network supplying young and fresh victims to pedophiles, or rather, not pedophiles themselves, but a network supplying young and fresh cases to pedophiles. Because Bill, as several people reported, I won't mention their names, likes them fresh.
You know who else? Bill Clinton had a lot of problems with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, this was a young man who was starting his political career. His name is Donald Trump.
Bill Clinton, good guy. In my opinion, he has a lot of problems ahead with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems?
2015. Nobody was even talking about them. Nobody even knew who Jeffrey Epstein was. President Trump began his political career by attacking the pedophile elite.
So in 2015-2016, Trump mentioned, without being, so to speak, forced, tortured, or asked what killed Clinton, a lot of problems are coming with the island where he visited endlessly. It's interesting, if Epstein were Trump's friend, why would Trump attack Epstein? After all, he would be exposing himself too if he were his friend and accomplice and, so to speak, everything else, right? And the fact that Trump brought up this issue suggests, let's think together, either that he's involved or that he has absolutely nothing to worry about.
The question about Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks to law enforcement and your response.
I think he has a problem. In my opinion, it's a problem. That island was undoubtedly a den of vice. Prince Andrew can attest to it. The island was a complete den of iniquity.
Well, now it's time to talk about oil, Russia, China, and Trump's ideas. Let's start with the fact that there are huge oil reserves off the coast of England, huge ones. But the idiots from the European Union decided that they wouldn't touch them and instead would buy from Russia. Why? Because extraction off the coast of Europe could affect the environment, but extraction in Russia can't. They tell us that the environment is the same for everyone. If it's polluted in one place, it will definitely spread and pollute somewhere else. Or actually, maybe the officials were paid very well in cash to say that. Trump has been putting pressure on the British for several months now. Especially Keir Starmer. Oh, Starmer, of course, remembered that this wealth needs to be unlocked and offered to China and India to supply them with oil, so that they forget about Russia as an energy supplier. The United States is holding final consultations with India about a trade agreement. And halfway through, let's say with China, Trump wants to persuade both countries to put pressure on Russia to end the war in Ukraine. Well, with China, it's unlikely to work out. That's me playing Cassandra, but with India, maybe they'll be persuaded. But Trump might raise this issue only if he can offer them an alternative to Russian and Iranian oil. And now, after coming out of the session with Starmer, Trump announced, I no longer need 50 days to start taking steps to put pressure on Russia. Now I need 10 to 12 days. And I will be able to announce to Putin what punishments will come to him, will be imposed on him, to make him stop, to make him end the war.
I would say that we would have made a deal 5 times. I talked a lot with President Putin. I always got along with him very well. But 5 times, and each time maybe 4 times. But we had discussions, you and I had discussions, we thought we had it settled many times. And then President Putin comes out and starts launching missiles at some city and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or somewhere else. Bodies are lying all over the street, and I say, you can't do that. We'll see what comes of it. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin, very disappointed in him. So we'll have to see. And I'm going to cut down those 50 days I gave him to a smaller number because I think I already know the answer.
Thus, the sanctions that Trump is expected to impose will hit India and China the hardest. India buys Russian oil, China buys almost exclusively Russian oil and Russian liquefied natural gas. Now, this could potentially seriously undermine Trump's economic agenda at home. He needs to be very careful with this.
If Trump has to impose these tariffs, which are 100% of the value of the imported goods, Trump could, first of all, ruin relations with these countries, with India, with China. As it will be, it's unlikely to work, and secondly, it could have a big impact on the market, the United States domestic market.
That's been like the unannounced policy. That was kind of an unspoken policy for several months. They're trying. The State Department tried to convey this to its partners in the United Kingdom. And today, Trump published the following: North Sea oil is a treasure trove for the United Kingdom. However, the taxes are so high that it's not sensible. They basically told the drillers and oil companies that they don't want them, encouraged the drillers quickly. A huge fortune for the United Kingdom and significantly lower energy costs for the people. So we'll see what happens in 10 days. In a sense, that's positive. We know that Trump is doing everything possible to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. He wants this war to end. He built his campaign on that. He has already stopped at least 5 other wars. Let's see what they come up with for their 10-day ultimatum.
International politics is somewhat like a game of chess, but played with hockey sticks on skates. Gentlemen, in the description below the video, there is an offer for you to become a sponsor of the channel for $4 a month. A sponsor. We made additional videos. Once a week, we will try to do more, plus we will organize meetings exclusively for sponsors, with questions and answers. There, with some other mutual conversations. Yes, also in the same place where I mentioned the sponsorship offer. There is also a link to my book, and if you download it completely free, the book is called Capitalism. So 101 sounds like something dry related to political economy, but there is nothing like that. These are, in general, quite fun and interesting stories and tales, references, historical anecdotes, and so on related to philosophy, politics, today, yesterday, and things like that. Yes, so whoever orders the book will already. We will send a 10-minute video every day. I think you will find it interesting to watch. We will send it daily, absolutely free. Also, yes, many thanks to the nonprofit organization called the Science of Freedom Foundation. So, I think you will find it interesting, engaging, and useful to watch these videos and read the book as well. And besides that, come back, share with your friends, and please tell others about us. Because the things we're trying to bring you for some reason aren't really present in the Russian-speaking information space. But I don't know, almost no one talks about this, or maybe actually no one at all. And if they do talk about it, they're lying, which is very easy to spot. It's just that when they say someone knew about it and told me, but I won't say who or when, that's how it goes. He's probably lying. Let's wrap it up here. Goodbye and see you next time.